Different cultures produce different things.
And that shows me even more why that diversity is needed. There's so much power in having community, what I call, for us, brotherhood. Having a brotherhood, having community, having people you can call. All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the first episode of Beyond the Science podcast.
We here.
Podcast where we amplify the voices of diverse professionals.
Love it.
In the field of ABA. I'm your host, Jeron Trotman, and I am thrilled to kick off this journey with you guys. Alongside are my fantastic co-hosts, Joseph Adams, you'll hear me call him Joe, and we got Darius Cooper, you will hear me call him Coop.
What up?
So, Joe, why don't you introduce yourself to our listeners?
Hi, guys. I'm Joseph Adams, owner of a small practice, Adams Behavior Consulting. This has been a year in the making, guys. It's been a year in the making. We talked about this. We wanted to do this. We wanted to do something that can touch our community in a special way. So, guys, I'm just so excited to be here. I'm so excited to dive into these topics. You know, let's go beyond the science.
Let's go beyond the science, baby. Coop.
Yes,
What about you, man? Tell us a little about you.
I'm Darius Cooper. I go by Coop. I'm the CEO of Excellence Noire ABA. I also work in the field as a registered behavior technician here and there. I'm also very excited. I'm glad to be here with my brothers to create a platform to, allow people to have voices. And I think we're going to do something real impactful.
Definitely impactful. And I think it's important to talk about why it's called Beyond the Science, right? Beyond the Science, because we're not only going to explore the science, we're going to go deeper than that. We're going to talk about the challenges. We're going to talk about the barriers.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about the successes, the triumphs. We're going to talk about the underrepresented backgrounds in our field. So I'm excited to get started. Let's move to our mission and vision. All right, for Beyond the Science, fellas. So our mission is to amplify the voices of diverse professionals within ABA, and we aim to address and dissect the unique challenges, barriers, and cultural nuances that impact various communities.
That's a lot, bro. That's a big statement.
When you hear that, brother, what do you think, man? Talk to me.
I'm thinking about just diversity, just diving deep, just understanding why we do what we do, where we do, when we do it. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Not just hitting your basic functions, but just talking about just who we are as practitioners, and our guests gonna talk about this too, and just what is our purpose as people in ABA.
What about you, Coop? When you hear that vision, when you hear about diversity, inclusion, the dynamic, the dialogue that we want to have, what comes to your mind?
Definitely the first word that comes to my mind is needed. Is needed right now. I think there's a lot going on in the ABA space. We're also entering that space of post-COVID, where a lot of changes are being made every month. The journal is updating things. I think that we in a new era right now, going into a new era all around, from telehealth to now people got to go in the homes again. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah, I think you bring some good points when you say needed.
Yes.
There has never been a podcast like this with three black men in the field coming together to talk about what we're going to talk about. So I'm excited to be here. And, now that we talked about our mission and our vision, I want our listeners to, know a little bit more about us. So my name is Jeron Trotman. Yes, again, I am the president and founder of Black Men in Behavior Analysis. I am also the founder of ABA versus Block Party. I'm passionate about this increasing this diversity and representation in our field. I think as we dive in deeper into our own experiences, we'll talk about that. I'm also passionate about creating supportive environments for all and creating an impact. I'm trying to empower the next generation of clinicians. Y'all know this.
Yes,
Y'all know what I'm about.
Yes. And you are being very humble right now. You're being very, very humble.
Guys.
You are the president of BNBA, which is, we're going to talk about that more. Brought to you by BNBA, but what you're doing in that space and for our people is on a different level, So definitely don't want to downplay that in any way.
I appreciate it. Now that we on that, Coop, I was going to go to Joe, but I'm going to go to Coop. I want you to talk to us a little bit about you, who you are, in the field, outside of the field?
Okay, all right. So I'm gonna do that annoying thing that everybody from New York does and let you know they're from New York. You know what I'm saying? You know, we gonna start off there, Southside, Jamaica, Queens. You know what I'm saying? Southside, you know, Rosedale, you know, Rochdale. We gonna start off there. But yeah, man, I went upstate to school. I went to Tompkins, Cortland. I went up there for the entrepreneurship program. I kind of always had this entrepreneurial background. I started working in a group home setting with troubled youth. That's where I got introduced to children on the spectrum. And I had a couple family members with autism, right? But it was a thing that 10, 20 years ago, which we still kind of deal with now, but parents kind of in denial. We kind of knew, but, you know, people, it was kind of think, oh, he a little special, or he just a little off. People didn't want to go get their kids out, and they didn't have the same resources as we do now, but it was also in the space. So I had family members, you know, that were just a little different, and I felt like the way I interacted with them. And then once I started learning about neurodiverse children and people and working with people on the spectrum, I just really took a call into it. You know, my pops was a correction officer, right, for 20 years. But the reason I say that is because my whole life I had this mindset of like, what can I do for 20 years that I'm gonna enjoy? You know, like I'm not like a job-to-job person. So I've always tried to figure out what can be my career. You know, we try to be like our parents in a sense, but this was it for me. You know, this was the thing that I felt that I could do this for the next, 10, 20 years. It's rewarding. You know, it makes sense as far as, financially and being able to take care of a family. So I kind of fell in love with this space. So yeah, I came out here. I started off at Hope Ridge. I was able to go. They had a dope training and they had an amazing system at the time. And I was able to start off with them. And actually, the funny thing is, when I applied, it was for a behavior technician. So I thought it was troubled youth. I thought it was kids with behaviors. Like, I didn't even know that it was, children with autism. So I wanted to get back into that space. So I went in for the interview, and it's like 2 and 3 year olds running around. And I'm like, they screaming and they, people running behind them. But I love working with the youth. So I said, I'm going to give it a shot. And then I heard, you get certified, you take the test, so I was invested. And I felt like to be rounded in this space, I want to be able to work with 2 to 21. I was in a space of that, let's say 13 to 18 in a group home setting. But I'm like, if you want to work with youth and make a change, you got to be able to work with every age, So I jumped in, I took the state exam, that was cool for the parents. Be like, hey, I'm a licensed therapist, and so, yeah, once I did that, I went company to company. I ran into Joe here. He changed my, trajectory as far as ABA went. Because I always knew that I had this entrepreneurial spirit and I wanted to do something. But we started working together, the first black BCBA that first black male BCBA that I met. We came together, and the first day we met, it was kind of just like, it was just this crazy synergy. We're gonna get into that later. My first conversation we had, it was like, hey, you ever thought about starting a company? And we just looked at each other like, I see, yeah, like it's about to be a thing, like, And at first he didn't really think. He was like, nah, he just talking, He be telling me that, but we had that vibe like, all right, I see, and then through that, we connect with, I was able to connect with you at Apartment 4B, and I was also, has been super, super impactful and important to my journey right now with starting this ABA company. But, we did that. We worked with an older kid, and the things that he showed me, I was like, yo, this is needed. So I went and started my own ABA company, Excellence Noire ABA, to focus on, the teenagers and to potentially create that pipeline for when kids want to go to college and be able to get them into the right programs and stuff like that. So, yeah, that's pretty much my story. Now I'm here, with, my brothers, and I'm trying to continue to, impact the community.
Nobody's journey is the same. Right. It's not like doctors and lawyers and teachers who want to grow up being those things. Right. Like for me, I was a Division I basketball player. I had no recollection of ABA. And my college coach's wife said, hey, why don't you go check out this school for kids with autism?
And it's funny you say that, right? Because I remember we was at the cigar lounge one night talking mad junk, right? I'm like, beat shot, yo. My boy put out a picture and him dunking on like Jimmy Butler or something, right? And I ain't say this, right? It's the first time I'm saying it on the podcast, right? I'm like, nah, I can't beat my dog, right? You know what I'm saying? He got a picture.
It wasn't like that. It wasn't that bad.
Joe be
It wasn't that
hating.
bad. It wasn't that
Listen.
bad. It wasn't that bad.
No, but we're gonna get back to that.
Okay.
I appreciate that because everybody's journey is different. You know, I'm intrigued by when I hear about everybody's different journeys. You know, when it comes into field. So, more on that later. Joe, I want you to tell our listeners about who you are, how you got into the field, what you're doing now, and everything in between.
So, guys, I'm Joseph Adams, owner of Adams Behavior Consulting. You know, who I am is just, I'm an educator at heart. I've been a teacher for 15 years. It started when I was in college, guys. I was a camp counselor, man. I started at Camp Reshape, then I went to Kids Across America. So I just enjoyed just kids, just working with kids. I thought I was going to be a LPC, which is a licensed practical counselor. My journey took a different direction. Like 2015, I heard about ABA through my mentor when I was a kid. His name is Adrian Daisley. Shout out to him. He's in Orlando. Been to BCBA since like 2005. So he sent me a few videos. So I'm looking at this. I'm like, man, I'm a special education teacher, man. I could do the same thing. So in all my time of just, being a basketball coach and just working with kids, I just found my target population. So at the beginning of this, I'm going to tell you guys, 80% of ABA is probably done in a clinic. You can do ABA outside of a clinic, hence the name of our podcast, Beyond the Science. Yes, it doesn't just have to be there. And that's just what I wanted to bring to the world. My target client profile, man, I love the kids that are like 12 to 21 because I'm trying to get these guys ready for life. And I just think that people forget about them. Like, man, what's going to happen? We're so caught up in our field with just the early intervention kids that we don't realize that, when this kid gets 21, this parent has to make a hard choice. Do I almost give my child up? Or do I know that my child is ready to participate in a day program or potentially a group home, somewhere that I can trust that's safe for my child. My child has acquired the necessary skills to do that. So, guys, I'm super passionate about that because I see it every day. I see parents going through this when I'm at the IEP meetings or when I'm talking to them, and they see a glimpse of a kid or an adult who's like in their 40s. And they're like, does my child have enough skills to survive on their own when I pass away?
That's heavy. Yeah. That's heavy. I think one of the important things about what you said is a couple of things that you said that resonated with me. ABA outside the clinic, the population that you work with, and how ABA can be extended even outside of autism. Yes. We have the science of human behavior. We have a technology to improve behavior. And I think there's a lot of people out there right now really moving and pushing the needle of outside of autism. And we'll bring those people on. We're going to talk about that as well. So, Joe, I appreciate you sharing your journey with us as well. Well, now that our audience knows a little bit about us, I want to get into our first discussion topic. I want to talk about diverse voices in ABA. Coop, I'm going to come to you first with this one. Why do you think it's crucial for us to have this conversation about diverse voices in ABA?
I think that it's just not enough. When you guys talk about the numbers as far as just being black male BCBAs, that speaks volumes. Even the fact of, with Joe being the first one I met, I want to say you might be the second one I met. So let's talk about that. Which is weird because, I live in Atlanta, but most of the kids I've worked with are usually black or Spanish or, I would say majority of the clinics I've worked at, it's majority, black children there, Spanish and minority children there. So the fact that that's a thing and there's not more representation for us is kind of a strange space in a sense. It comes back to that needed thing. And I feel like that's a big part of why we're doing this, So that's what I would say. What about you, Joe?
I mean, Coop, man, I'll take it a step further from needed that I think it's a must.
Yes.
We have, kids being diagnosed every day from different backgrounds, different cultures, different environments, different regions. Diversity is key. Like, we can't have the same voice with the same, skill acquisition, with the same everything that we do. We got to have different voices. We got to have different people, and that's just going to allow us just to reach more kids.
So let me ask you guys this, right? This is a question for both of y'all as BCBAs. What majority of your caseloads are African American or Spanish children?
Yeah.
Well, see, I'm fortunate to guys where I kind of own my own company, and I try to just to work with young.
So before you owned your own company, when you worked for other companies, what was the majority of your caseload?
I mean, it was young boys,
Black or white?
black. It was young black boys.
Have you ever even had a white client?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm glad you asked that because the experiences are different contingent on obviously where you live, right? Here in Atlanta, which for our listeners, our studio is here in Atlanta, Georgia. It's very different. The dynamics are different. And so when we talk about diversity and you talk about the population that we do serve, you said that Joe was the first Black male BCBA you met and I may have been the second. And just to plug in some BMBA here, I hear that story a lot, particularly for Black men in our field. It's, hey, you're the first Black person, the first Black man that I met. And when we talk about diversity, I think bringing diverse experiences to the table, bringing diverse perspectives to the table, only are going to help serve the unique population of individuals that we do serve. So, Coop, when you ask that question, immediately in my mind, I think about, man, I have had experiences in 2 different regions, and I can see how it varies depending on where I'm at. And that shows me even more why that diversity is needed. Before we move to our next segment, which is we're going to give some teasers here, I just want to open up the floor to both of you guys just to share a little bit about your journey in being a Black man in this field. So we have a RBT, a business owner here. We have a BA, behavior analyst, another business owner. And y'all journeys may be different. And some of it may align a little bit. But I want to hear both of you guys. It's just stories about being Black men in our field, how it's been for you, any of the challenges, any of the successes that you've been through, just specifically off of being a Black man in this field.
So I would say to start, I've experienced being a Black man as an RBT and then also a Black man as a business owner in this field, and those are 2 different lanes, 2 different obstacles. I would say as a Black, man in this Black RBT in this field, I went through the hurdle, right, of working in the clinics. Let's say it's a woman-dominated field, right? I went through that hurdle of I was literally the only male at one clinic, right, with 10, 15 women. And then I was one of 3 males at another clinic with 15, 20 women, Being young, I think that is part of it. That's also the part to talk about because you have to navigate the different emotions and the different environments, and men can be emotional, men, women can be emotional, right? But it's a little different when you're working in a all women space sometimes, right? And especially being a young guy, I'm outgoing, I want to have fun. So I felt like that was something that I had to figure out how to navigate. Now, to get back to the question, I started off with essentially white BCBAs, right? I've had white male BCBAs, and it's a different experience. Yep. I felt like the communication just wasn't there sometimes. And this is not even a white or Black thing because this kind of depends on the person, but this is my personal experience in the sense that it was a different energy when I was able to connect with, Mr. Adams, Joe, a Black male BCBA in the field, and just his approach and the way we communicated and went about things was just different, and I feel like even while we're doing this, because the reality is, man, like it's different. Different cultures produce different things, Sure. And there's some things that, as Black, we might not understand from a Spanish or Hispanic culture or a white culture, and the same vice versa, as in there's white and Hispanic people who might not understand the Black culture, right? So me, back to my question I asked you guys, I've only really worked in this space in Atlanta, right? So my clients have been 95% Black and Hispanic, So in the space that I've worked in, the fact that I've only worked with essentially Black and Hispanic children, and I didn't meet a Black male BCBA till 3 years in is kind of crazy when you think about it.
Yes, absolutely, man. I'm so happy that you shared that, and I was like listening. As I listen, I'm like, this is a safe space, so we're gonna dive deep into it. We don't want to hold back. We want to dive deep and talk about the real experiences. And before I get to Joe, I had similar experiences as I was coming up. So my cohort in my college grad classes, I was usually the only black person there. Definitely the only black man there.
So
right?
what was that experience like?
Let me tell you, I don't think it was really amplified until I started doing my supervision. So I
Okay.
feel like when I was doing my courses in grad school, I didn't notice it as much until I really started getting my hours. And then I started seeing my supervisors were white women. They were amazing, but I started seeing a gap in how we would communicate certain culture nuances that I'm like, okay, having somebody that was like-minded that understood that. And I think for my journey, because I was in New Hampshire initially, I couldn't kind of tell. But when I moved to Atlanta, I met my mentor, Dr. Njamu Nkosi, Dr. AJ, most people know about him, Southern Behavior Group. And I saw, okay, the power of having somebody, a like-minded that looks like you, having the power of a brotherhood in a circle. And I think for me, that was transformative. I was like, okay, now I see the impact and the power of that. So for me, my journey's been a little bit different. But when I got to Atlanta, I think that's when I first realized, okay, this is the impact of having that. So, and I appreciate you sharing your story. Joseph, tell us about your
guys,
experience.
I tell people, man, I came from education. So I was a 15-year educator in Georgia. I mean, there were still limited black male teachers. There were limited black male principals, limited black male upper leadership staff. But when I resigned in education in 2021 and I came to the ABA space, that's when I started noticing a whole lot of things that were just different. Because mind you, I'm used to the education pace. This is that, that is this. When I come over here and just interviewing, and, back then we were kind of somewhat in COVID. So going through COVID and just the facial expressions that the interviewers would give me when I clicked my Zoom video on, it was like, whoa. Because my name is Joseph Adams. And that's a typical name, So then I started realizing, okay, this is a little bit different. And coming from education, again, I had a different experience than you. Like you kind of probably were deep in the field. Your supervision experience, my supervision experience was in my classroom, was in my EBD classroom. So it was different. So, navigating that space, trying to fit into the square peg that everybody had, which was the clinic. Guys, y'all probably can't see, but I'm 6'6", 275 pounds. I can't sit in them little bitty chairs and go chase them little bitty kids and just do that. So, man, I enjoyed it, but I just knew, I said, something's got to be different. So just navigating this and this new field and then starting a business. I mean, Coop, I get little flutters inside when you talk, man, because it's like your little brother to me, man. And I just want everybody to be successful. But, I think the lack of mentors, which you've pointed to, in all aspects of ABA, especially for us minority practitioners, is huge.
Yes.
We don't have the older generation really imparting. And that's why, man, Jeron, I give you so much props for starting BMBA, because not only do I get to see black male BCBAs, I get to see older guys. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking that everybody's, I'm 40, look good still, but I'm 40. But just to see, like, I can take a trip and I can go connect with a brother down in Orlando who's been a BA since 2004, and just to hear his experiences, man, that stuff is so important. So these are just some of the common obstacles, because when I'm having an issue in my business, I don't know who to call. Like, I really don't know who to call. Like, I've got to, figure out, okay, what do I do? So just, piggybacking on that, man, and just, I appreciate all the kind words, Coop, and Jeron, what you're doing, because you're exposing, you're connecting, you're relating. I've got a group of people I can just call now because of your group, BMBA, man. Shout out to BMBA. If you haven't gotten the membership, go ahead and get it. You get a lot of dope stuff, 10% off a lot of stuff, 20% off some more stuff.
I agree with you. And I think that sometimes our culture has a thing, right, of not wanting to give each other information and give each other game.
What?
It's things that you don't necessarily see in other cultures, right? And I think that even for me personally, right, like the first night, we always go back to apartment 4B. I had this thing of like, yo, if me and these two brothers, right, we connect, we could change the world, right? Because like, we meet people and people be out for self. Along this journey, we all just some genuine dudes on some like, I could call you like, hey JT, all right, here's this number, bro, call him. Hey Joe, all right, I'm gonna send you this lady, like, and I feel like even doing that, myself, I've been able to, probably grow a 7-figure company this year off of my relationships, off of, essentially, the plugs that he's been able to give me, the plugs that you've been able to give me. And I feel like I really, really want to kill that narrative that we can't work together.
Yeah, absolutely. You talk about gatekeeping. I feel like between both of you guys, both of y'all spoke about a few things I want to quickly highlight, and I appreciate that, Coop. You spoke about the power of community.
Yes.
There's so much power in having community, what I call for us brotherhood.
Brotherhood.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, I
having a
agree.
brotherhood, having community, have people you can call. You spoke about mentorship, which I think we can have a whole topic on the power of mentorship, right? There's so much value in having somebody, particularly for us, somebody that looks like you with experience, with knowledge, that can help you not only professionally, but personally too, as a man. There's so much value to that. I can't put a price tag on mentorship and how important that is. It's changed my trajectory as a practitioner, as an entrepreneur, and on all these things. So I definitely want our listeners to continue to learn about, more about this mentorship piece, man. It's huge. And having this community is super special. So I also want to give a shout out to BNBA as well.
Yeah,
Even though,
for sure.
it was something that started with saying, hey, let's have a special interest group of people that look like us. And now it's grown into this international community.
Yes.
For everybody, I encourage everybody to become a BNBA member. Supporters,
Yes,
everybody.
yes.
It's a movement.
And I want to say that, BNBA is something that is a big part of my journey in the sense of that, it was a community that made me realize that I'm not in this by myself. And there's a lot of people who don't even know about BNBA where like this was a big factor in me deciding to make this a career. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's cool to do business. It's cool to, make money. We all want to take care of our families, but it's also a thing of like, you still got to have a community in whatever you're doing.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? For it to make sense. And BNBA was a big part of that. The fact that, the mentorship program you was able to start, how we jump on a Zoom call every Wednesday and we do breakout rooms and we connect with different professionals and it's all just giving game. And, that's a big thing. And I think a lot of more brothers in the field need to learn about and connect with. But that's why we're doing this.
This is our duty. Like,
Yes.
I don't know what camera I'm looking at right now, but this is our duty.
Yeah.
This is what like we lack in all cultures. The older generation does not impart the knowledge back into the younger generation.
Yes.
They kind of gatekeep, they're tired, they're whatever they have going on. But like we struggle. And we got young practitioners, young brothers, young females, young whatever. We're struggling because there's nobody telling us, hey man,
Right.
like this is where you step. I've stepped in this snow before.
Yes.
I've got these steps. So man, again, shout out to BNBA for doing that. I get so excited when I get to see our brothers that are like 40, 50, 60 in it, 45 in it, owning clinics for 10, 20 years, just because they could just tell me like, and this is deeper than just, practitioner stuff. Just like, what is it? How do you balance being a father?
Ooh.
That is the question that I asked.
Wow.
So that, like Jeron, like you don't understand like what BNBA does and just how important that is because I don't get this answered anywhere else.
As a business owner, having a daughter who is very talented in volleyball, how do you balance that?
Guys, and I tell aspiring BCBAs, I don't try to sugarcoat it. This is a very difficult job. This job will have you up all times of night. The more cases you take, because our hearts are so big as practitioners, cool. Like, man, I really want to save the world. Like I have a hard time saying no. Parent called me like, hey, Mr. Adams, you think you could take my son? I'm trying to figure out a way. Like, what can I do to change the trajectory of that kid's life? I struggle with it. I don't have a balance. I don't know what balance is. I work 60 to 80 hours a week as a business owner. And I just struggle, so I'm praying through. I met some great guys through BNBA. Shout out to Vargas. Shout out to Dr. Daly, who I'm going to see. And shout out to Adrian Daisley, who I always see when I pop into Orlando. So I met some good brothers, man. But yeah, it's just tough, man. It's tough.
Man, that's heavy, man. I think this really goes to beyond the science.
Yes.
Right? We're not talking about reshaping, reinforcement, differential reinforcement, functional analysis.
Yes.
All the extinction. We're talking about beyond that right now. And I think that's the value. You heard how you just so eloquently, this is a safe space to share that information. And so I think that's a good segue to what we're going to be doing, the guests that we're going to be bringing on this podcast. So I'm going to give y'all a taste of what's to come. All right. We're going to be having interviews with experts, practitioners from diverse backgrounds on future episodes of BNBA. We're going to be sharing insights. We're going to be sharing challenges. We're going to be sharing successes. We want the whole picture, right? We want the whole picture. I'm excited to be here with you, brothers. I think it's important for our listeners to know the synergy that us three have, the power and the brotherhood that we have. And I'm just excited to be on this journey with you guys.
Yes, and I'm ready to have those real conversations, man. There's people who don't agree with what we do. There's people who don't think, ABA works as efficiently as it does. There's, a lot of people who don't agree, and I'm ready to have those open conversations and hopefully, change their minds and give a better, insight of what we do and how we do it. And if we can't, agree to disagree, but I do want this to be a space. I want to have, the parents who have a 14, 15-year-old who's nonverbal, who's now 6'2", 230, and potentially mom and, dad might not be in the picture and he's a little aggressive. And, how do you deal with that? The people that are thinking about giving up that might have potentially given up, because that's also a community. And I think that from working in this space to having family in this space is something that you don't understand unless you are doing it or in it.
Yeah.
Because no one knows what that's like to be a mother or even a father and having a nonverbal 15, 16-year-old that's going through puberty, that's 230, that's physical, that doesn't want to, really listen and stuff. And I feel like this is a dope platform that we're creating to have that space for those conversations and to know that, it's okay. You're not a bad person. You're not there's a lot of Facebook groups, right, that I'm sure you guys are in, and a lot of people in this space are in, where we see it every day where people are like, I want to give up. I feel like a bad person because I don't know what to do anymore. Everyone can't get ABA services. Sure. There's a 2, 3, 4 wait list for a lot of places, so even in that, right? And then outside of that, let's go back to the fact of that, if you do got those older aggressive kids, because kids grow up, how many black men are there now to help you? Men in general, but how many black men that give you a different approach, you know what I'm saying? And the other part of it is that as a black male BCBA, right, when you going into these homes, you guys are looked at even differently, right? If there is no father there, because now you are the person that's kind of creating them boundaries and telling the kid what to do and implementing stuff, right? And that kind of even go beyond the science in the sense of that, that's deep.
You talking about ethics. You're talking about people who may not even believe in our science. And y'all want to get into it, let's get into it. Our science also has a history going back to behavior modification days and the things that were done before we really started to focus on our ethics, before we started doing functional analysis, before all this. So we're going to have parents on. We're going to have people with different opinions on. We're going to have some celebrities on here. We're going to have people that not only agree with us, but disagree with us. And we want to have those conversations on this space. So, Joe, I'm going to put it to you before we close out. Anything else we're looking forward to, or any closing remarks by you?
So I just want everybody to know that, hey, we're authentic. Yes. We're real. We're not going to sugarcoat nothing. We're going to tell you exactly how it is or how the field is in our eyes, in our opinion, currently. So the listeners that we bring on, we might ask a personal question or two. The parents that we bring out, we might kind of dive deep. You may see tears. You may really get to feel what that person is going through.
Yes.
Just as we do it in the field. Because, during parent training, I feel it. I feel the anxiety. I feel the PTSD. I feel all of it. And I attempt to just guide our parents. So I just, stay tuned, man, because this about to be a journey.
Stay tuned.
We about to, we about to.
Oh, I feel it right now. I feel it right now.
We about to get it. Shout out to Apartment 4B. I love the oxtails.
Fellas, we want to make this podcast a valuable resource for our community.
Yes.
And we're going to make this podcast a valuable resource for our community. So shout out to both of you brothers, everything you're doing. There is no other podcast out there with the three brothers out here just doing this work. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in. We hope you're as excited as we are about this journey. And we want to hear from you. Give us feedback. We would love to hear from you. So thank you for listening to the first inaugural episode.
Number one.
Beyond the Science.
Number one.
Cheers, fellas.
Cheers.
Yes, sir. Till next time. Thanks for listening.